Donald Trump is trying to punish an American technology company, not for breaking the law, not for defrauding customers, not for polluting the water supply, but for saying, hey, maybe our artificial intelligence shouldn't be used to spy on millions of American citizens at once or build weapons that can decide to kill people on their own without a human pulling the trigger. That was the offense. That was the unforgivable offense that prompted the leader of the free world to fire off a Truth Social post banning every federal agency from doing business with them because they had the nerve to say, we'd like a human being involved before our software kills someone. So yesterday he posted an angry rant on Truth Social about the AI company Anthropic, which makes the Claude AI model, calling them radical left and woke and left-wing nut jobs for the crime of keeping safety limits on their technology. And what he posted is so unhinged, so dictator-like in its tone and what it means, that I genuinely need you to read every word of it. Because if I just described it to you, you'd think I was exaggerating. Here's what he posted. The United States of America will never allow a radical left woke company to dictate how our great military fights and wins wars. That decision belongs to your commander-in-chief and the tremendous leaders I appoint to run our military. The left-wing nutjobs at Anthropic have made a disastrous mistake trying to strong-arm the Department of War and force them to obey their terms of service instead of our Constitution. Their selfishness is putting American lives at risk, our troops in danger, and our national security in jeopardy. Therefore, I am directing every federal agency in the United States government to immediately cease all use of Anthropic's technology. We don't need it, we don't want it, and will not do business with them again. There will be a 6-month phase-out period for agencies like the Department of War who are using Anthropic's products at various levels. Anthropic better get their act together and be helpful during this phase-out period, or I will use the full power of the presidency to make them comply with major civil and criminal consequences to follow. We will decide the fate of our country, not some out-of-control, radical left AI company run by people who have no idea what the real world is all about. Thank you for your attention to this matter. Make America great again, President Donald J. Trump. All right, here's what you need to know, because there is so much context that post leaves out, and all of it makes this worse. So what is actually going on here? NPR, CBS News, NBC News, and basically every major outlet that's been covering this for weeks have all laid out what's really going on. Here's the real story. Anthropic has a contract with the Pentagon worth up to $200 million. They were actually the first AI company cleared to work inside the military's top secret systems, meaning the Pentagon trusted them enough to build their technology into some of the most sensitive intelligence and military operations we have. Anthropic was not some anti-military activist outfit. They were literally working with the military. But Anthropic had 2 conditions. 2, they said their AI should not be used to spy on huge numbers of Americans here at home, which, by the way, is already illegal under existing law, and it should not be used in weapons that can kill entirely on their own without a human being involved in the decision. That's it. Those were the 2 safety limits. Not, we refuse to work with the military, not, we won't support national defense, just, don't use our technology to spy on Americans, and don't build Skynet. I realize that's a reference to a 40-year-old movie, but honestly, The Terminator feels more like a documentary every day. And the Pentagon's response, led by a top Pentagon official named Emil Michael, was to set a 5 p.m. Friday deadline for Anthropic to drop all of its safety restrictions, or face being labeled a supply chain risk, which basically means the government would treat them like a danger to national security. Now, Fortune and multiple other outlets have pointed out that label is normally saved for foreign enemies, companies like China's Huawei or Russia's Kaspersky. They wanted to treat an American company the way we treat enemy spy agencies from other countries. Because that company said, hey, weapons that can kill on their own should maybe have a human in the loop. And here's where it gets really interesting. The Pentagon also threatened to use a law from the Korean War called the Defense Production Act to force Anthropic to hand over an unrestricted version of their AI. Now, a detailed legal analysis from Lawfare found that using the DPA this way would be completely new. It's never been done before. Legal experts, including Joel Dodge at the Vanderbilt Policy Accelerator, have said the DPA has never been used to force a company to make a product it considers unsafe or to override a company's terms of service. And this is the part I need you to really appreciate. When Biden used a much weaker part of the DPA in 2023 to simply require AI companies to share safety test results with the government, not hand over products, just share test results. Republicans in Congress held hearings called White House Overreach on AI, where they called it an abuse of power. He himself repealed that executive order on his first day back in office because he thought the government was going too far. As Lawfare specifically noted, even Biden's far more modest DPA use drew sharp Republican criticism, yet Hegseth is now threatening a use that is way, way more aggressive. So, requiring companies to share safety data? Tyranny. Forcing a company to strip safety features from AI that could be used in weapons that kill on their own? Freedom, apparently. I wonder what changed. Take a second. Think about it. And then there's what Anthropic CEO Dario Amodei said, which Trump conveniently leaves out. Axios reported that Amodei openly said the military, not private companies, makes military decisions. He pointed out that Anthropic has never objected to particular military operations. His position was narrow and specific. And as he noted, the Pentagon's two threats were, and this is a direct observation from Amodei, completely opposite of each other. One labels Anthropic a security risk, while the other treats their AI as so essential to national security that the government needs to force access to it. You can't have it both ways, unless you're this administration, in which case you can apparently have it every way at the same time. Now here's the part that should really make your head spin. Here's what Axios uncovered. This same week, the Pentagon signed a deal with Elon Musk's xAI to put Grok, Musk's AI chatbot, into top-secret military systems. Grok, which agreed to the Pentagon's unrestricted terms with no conditions whatsoever. Grok, whose parent company is owned by a man who spent months inside the White House running a shadow government agency. Grok, which, as the Daily Beast documented, has created sexual images of people without their permission, put out racist language, and once referred to itself as MechaHitler. That's the model they're bringing in to replace the one that said, maybe don't build weapons that kill on their own. So, just to be crystal clear about the strategy here, the administration isn't angry that AI is being used by the military. They're angry that one company, an American company, dared to say there should be limits, and the company waiting in the wings to replace them happens to be owned by one of the president's closest allies. And it's not just Anthropic who thinks these safety limits matter. TechCrunch and The Hill reported that over 430 employees at Google and OpenAI signed open letters this week supporting Anthropic's position. OpenAI CEO Sam Altman told his employees in a memo which Axios obtained that OpenAI shares the exact same red lines. No spying on Americans, no weapons that can kill on their own, humans in the loop for high-stakes decisions. He told CNBC he doesn't think the Pentagon should be threatening companies with the DPA over this. Even Google DeepMind's chief scientist, Jeff Dean, publicly stated that mass surveillance violates the Fourth Amendment, the part of the Constitution that protects Americans from unreasonable government searches. This is not some extreme, out-there position. This is what the entire industry agrees on. And the thing the viewer should be able to explain to anyone is this. Anthropic didn't refuse to work with the military. They refused to let their AI spy on Americans or kill without human oversight. The government's response was to ban them, threaten them with criminal charges, bring in Elon Musk's chatbot as a replacement, and dig up a Korean War-era law to force them to obey. If that framing doesn't concern you, no matter what political party you support, I don't know what will. So, what does this actually mean going forward? If the federal government can punish a private company for sticking to its own moral standards on its own product, if the government can say, take the safety features off or we'll destroy your business, that sets a rule that goes way beyond AI. That's the government saying it gets to decide what a company's product does, how it works, and who it serves. It's like if your mechanic said, I won't remove the brakes from your car, and the response was to threaten to charge them with a federal crime. And as Joel Dodge of the Vanderbilt Policy Accelerator told the AP, if Anthropic had caved to this pressure, it would open what he called a Pandora's box of what the government could do to grab power and control over private companies. So the company that didn't buckle is the one protecting the rest of us from that rule being set. The supply chain risk label that Defense Secretary Hegseth slapped on Anthropic today, according to Bloomberg, would block any company that works with the Pentagon from doing any business with Anthropic. That's a tool designed for foreign threats being turned into a weapon against an American company. A top risk researcher at Cambridge University named Xian O. Haijarte warned in an interview with Fortune that if the Pentagon comes out on top of this dispute, it will set a standard that chips away at the independence of every technology company and their ability to stick to their own moral standards. And meanwhile, enemies around the world are watching the United States tell its own AI industry, if you build in safety features we don't like, we will crush you. Think about what message that sends to every engineer, every researcher, every company thinking about whether to invest in AI safety. And for what? For what exactly? For 2 safety limits that the Pentagon itself says it wasn't planning to violate anyway? Their own spokesman, Sean Parnell, said publicly that the military has no interest in spying on Americans, which is already illegal, and isn't developing weapons that kill on their own without human oversight. If that's true, then what's the problem with putting it in the contract? The answer, of course, has nothing to do with national security and everything to do with control. This is an administration that cannot tolerate being told no by anyone, not by judges, not by Congress, not by government watchdogs, and certainly not by a tech company in San Francisco. This is the same Pete Hegseth who couldn't get confirmed without the vice president breaking a 50-50 tie, the same Emil Michael who called a CEO a liar with a god complex in a late-night social media meltdown that, as the Daily Beast counted, included 6 posts in 2 hours and read more like a bitter X than a senior defense official. These are not serious people making serious national security decisions. These are people who got told no and couldn't handle it. Harvard law professor Lawrence Lessig called Anthropic's stance in comments covered by Fortune a beautiful act of honesty and standing by your values, and incredibly rare for our time. And top risk researcher at Cambridge University named Sian Ohe-Gyartai warned that the government forcing a company to release technology in ways its own developers consider unsafe and high stakes, life or death battlefield situations, sets, in his words, a very dangerous precedent. So when I say this is alarming, it's not just me, it's people who study threats to humanity's survival for a living telling you the same thing. As of right now, Bloomberg is reporting that the Pentagon has officially labeled Anthropic a supply chain risk. Defense Secretary Hegseth has ordered the Pentagon to block contractors from doing business with Anthropic and set a 6-month window to rip out their AI from top-secret systems. Anthropic, for its part, has said it will cooperate with a smooth transition, but will not change its position. This isn't about one company and one contract. This isn't even really about artificial intelligence. This is about whether the United States government can tell a private company, remove the safety features from your product or we will destroy you, and whether we're okay with that. Because if a company can be banned, threatened with criminal charges, and have Korean War-era emergency powers used against it for saying, we don't want our AI to kill people without human oversight, then no company is safe from this kind of bullying. Not in AI, not in tech, not in any industry. And look, there are certain things in life that should not require explanation. You don't put metal in the microwave. You don't text your ex at 2 a.m. and expect a productive conversation. You don't give the One Ring to Boromir. Don't punish a company for refusing to build unsupervised killer robots. These are fundamentals. And yet, here we are. The President of the United States just sided with weapons that kill on their own over human oversight. And the replacement AI he's bringing in once called itself MechaHitler. If you wrote this in a screenplay, the studio would send it back and say, tone it down. Nobody would believe this. But you don't have to believe it. You just have to watch it happen. If this story concerns you, hit like so more people see it and understand what's at stake. Drop a comment with your thoughts, and your voice matters in this conversation. Share this with someone who needs to hear it, because awareness is the first step toward accountability. And don't forget to click the bell and subscribe so you don't miss the next breakdown.